And we all know there was huge hype behind Diablo 4, and there still is. And once we got the open beta, early open beta for the people who purchased the most expensive thing in the world, some people kind of felt a little bit disappointed. Others got really hyped. But the question remains, was it too hyped? Now, I cannot not be subjective on this. I am a very huge Diablo fan, been playing it since Diablo 2, like almost consistently, even with the World of Warcraft things going on. Diablo was always there, and it was always a place to go back to, especially when Diablo 2 Resurrected came along. So I'm very, very familiar with the Diablo franchise, and I'm kind of biased with it. But I can admit faults, and I can see problems or foresee problems where they are. But let's start with the positives. I think the positives are like a big majority of what I took so far from the Diablo 4 beta. Just starting it off from how the game looks, how it sounds, and what kind of atmosphere it portrays. It's like way leagues above Diablo 3. Because I have been seeing a lot of people saying that it's a Diablo 3 remaster, or there's some sort of like, yeah, it's basically Diablo 3, but up with a different engine. It's not like that at all. You have to really play to understand. I mean, come on, Diablo 3 was overly saturated in its colors and stuff, and it had butterflies, and the story was, I mean, it was darkish, but it still had like, you know, pretty silly turning points and whatever. Diablo 4, at least the part where we got the initial story from Act 1, the story was pretty good and it was quite dark. Graphics are really dark and they're really gruesome, and it's like really gory and stuff, which again, for Diablo game, I find it fun, so that's a very big ass positive. The sound and the atmosphere is very iconic, although well, I was kind of missing, you know, a staple track from Diablo. Like you have those like haunting guitar strums from Diablo 2 and even Diablo 3. There was nothing like this in Diablo 4, at least not in the beta. So we'll see. But overall, the atmosphere, graphics, and everything that Diablo 4 tries to like get you in, they're really dark and it's quite there. The combat is also pretty nice. I did play a barbarian and I did have like a pretty bad time like chasing like ranged mobs and stuff, but it feels snappy, it feels visceral. It feels impactful, although sometimes may be slow, but we are talking about a max level of 25. We cannot really talk about any end game or whatever, so it's for what it was, it felt great, and I'm hoping they can maybe improve on mobility and responsiveness in a way. Obviously, we did have a lot of lag, and as soon as I was in the middle of a pack, I sometimes found myself teleported into a different area or stuff like that happens, and Blizzard cannot be excused for that. But generally, it's a positive. The combat is basically as you would expect it to be from a Diablo game. Very, very on point. Would love to see a little bit more ways to tackle the melee characters, especially the barbarian. Now, the quests, the main quests and the side quests were interesting enough. This kind of ties in with the story. I've kind of loved what they did with the intro, very dark. The side quests are not always that interesting, I'll have to say, but they do serve what they are supposed to serve. There's some form of a daily quest or something that could become a daily quest once the game is out and you get to max level with the whole exorcism of demons from different folk and stuff. That was pretty cool. The voice acting in its big majority is really on point, so it's clear that in terms of like triple A-ness for the game, it's all there, right? Voice acting for a couple of characters you interact with is really, really good. I mean, we all know, you know, the voice acting from Lilith. You'll get to hear some voice acting from Anarius as well. Some other characters you're gonna play along with. They're really, really cool. Not all characters are interesting, at least not all of them that were available for the beta. The talent system, another positive. It's definitely an improvement from Diablo 2, a big improvement from Diablo 3, and this is packed up with the gear as well. I mean, sure, you've probably seen the talent system by now. It's similar in distribution and aspect with PoE, but it's not as near as complex and as vast as PoE, and I think that's a good thing. I still keep that into a positive. There's still time for them to add complexities once you get to the end game, and we haven't even like talked about the Paragon board and stuff, so there's There's still a lot more depth and complexity to be had within Diablo, but so far the system for the talents really cool. Everything kind of makes sense, and it's as much as you would see it being complicated at first glance, it's really not that complicated. They introduced and they shown off in the early beta the Codex of Power system, which I think is really cool. It's the system where you basically can extract the legendary and add it to a rare item, and this is something that you will do in the end game because rare items, the yellow ones, tend to have like the best affixes rolled onto them. So adding legendaries to those will transform those into legendaries with proper affix you need for your class. There's also the legendary aspects, which these can be found from dungeons. Also, it can be added to yellow items. So this is a system that will be heavily used into end game as well, and I kind of love it. There's the upgrade system where you can upgrade your current gear to a max of 5 ranks, I believe. Gold is, interestingly enough, very impactful in the game. I was quite surprised. You can first of all, you can respec your talents for free up until I believe level 20, and then it costs gold, and I can imagine it will cost more and more once you get to level 70, once the game is out. But not only that, the things you have to do, as I mentioned with the Codex of Power system and the upgrading the items, and gem slotting and extracting gems and crafting gems, those cost a lot of gold, man. So gold is very important, and it feels pretty good. It's still a positive since, like, coming from Diablo 3, there was a ton, an infinite amount of gold you can have, and it wasn't really that impactful at all. So I'm glad they went ahead and did this. There is also, like, the open world feels really cool. It's seamless for the most part, although this was a beta and I don't think everything was set in place. Again, have to mention the lag. There were a couple of places that had loading time, so it's really not that seamless, but it feels really cool. And this area, like the Fractured Peaks where you are in the beta, the design is really nice, and there's some places that are really gruesome and dark, and again, it fits Diablo 4. I can sit here for hours talking about the positives, but there were some negatives, and obviously everybody knows this. The queue times, the lag, the disconnects, those were really unacceptable. I cannot take this, but it's a beta, the UX, and no, you cannot expect this, because this costs money. First of all, this, in order to have access to this early open beta, you paid a couple of dollars more, right? And judging by the past of Blizzard, I don't know how much they can keep on getting away with this. Every single goddamn time there's a problem with the servers. Every time. And you can assume, as a Blizzard engineer or head engineer or project manager or whatever, you can assume there's giga hype for this game. You can assume people are very interested in playing this. Why do you not have the proper capacity for your own beta test? I don't know. But it's a very big ass negative, and a lot of people kind of felt they were let down because of this. So much experience with online games and you still managed to fuck it up. At this point, I really believe it's just, yeah, people are going to accept this anyways. Might as well not invest the money to have bigger capacity and maintenance for the service. I honestly believe it's like ill intent, not, oh my god, we were surprised. Get the fuck out of here with your surprises. This shit doesn't fly anymore. Anyways, getting back to it. Another negative, I feel I was kind of let down a little bit by the whole interface and menu. For some weird reason, it felt a bit disconnected to what you were seeing in the game. I've seen the complaints for some people like, oh yeah, this is like interface of a mobile game or whatever. Maybe it's still in development because it's a beta and there's still a couple of months left off, but I don't know, it felt very different from Diablo 3. I kind of enjoyed the interface from Diablo 3, very much enjoyed the interface from Diablo 2 Resurrected. This one felt a little bit off. I'm not sure why, maybe because of the simplicity of it, or maybe it was too saturated. I have a huge problem with Diablo games being overly saturated, as you can tell. This is why I didn't like Diablo 3. This is one of the major factors I didn't like Diablo 3 too much. Still played it to death though. Anyways, another negative I would say would be the fact that when you go into a dungeon, it's really cool and it's awesome and it's exciting. When you go into a dungeon that is similar or going again into the same dungeon, the layout is like almost identical. which is very weird coming again from Diablo 3, where everything gets randomized every time you log in. The dungeons, as great and gruesome and dark as they were, and the environments and the attention to detail was just insane, but they felt very, very identical to one another, right? You go killing mobs up until one point. At this point, you have to activate some sort of like thing to get to the boss room. You go to the left, you take the thing, kill some mobs, activate the first part of the opening, then you go to the right. It was the same thing. Open up the boss, fight the boss, there you go. The boss fights, while some were really cool, some of them were really punishing. So this is another thing, the difficulty of the game. Again, being beta, but I have to point it out. So the difficulty to some bosses and areas was really, really lackluster, like it was a breeze going through, while some others were like super difficult, super hard to get. I can imagine. I remember this boss I had to fight, like the Den Mother or something, which was like a big ass werewolf. I died so many times trying to get this. I eventually gave up. And even when I came back at level 24, 25, like super beefed up with legendaries and all of that, even then I had a hard time killing it, dying a couple of times. Maybe it's just a barbarian thing or whatever, but I've seen this all across the board. Some areas and bosses are really easy, while some of them are like extremely hard. So maybe this is something that can be fixed in the long run. And I couldn't think of too many other negatives. Obviously, it's still like the hype element is still very strong in me, but I really cannot get past some of the things that I've noticed there. Hopefully Diablo 4 open beta for the next weekend will be a lot more smoother. Hopefully the issues that they fixed last weekend will be non-existent the next weekend, as a lot more people are coming in to try out the open beta. But overall, I think it's a solid start for the game. Definitely interested on playing it more, definitely curious about the story. I love the angles they did with Lilith and Arius. Not gonna spoil it here, but it's really interesting to see if you pay attention. There's obviously a lot more to test out, and this is just like up until level 25 and Fractured Peaks. I would love to test like end game stuff. I would love to test out, you know, the Paragon system and the Renowned system. There's a lot more to test out, and we cannot really have any conclusion without testing the end game. But so far so good. Not overly impressed, but sufficiently hyped up to want more and to actually play it and give it a chance. Now, what do you think? Did you play it? If you did, what were your thoughts? If you didn't, did you see any streams? Did you see any videos? What impressions did the game in open beta left you? Leave it out in the comments, and we'll see you soon with another one. Thank you for watching.